Hello, and welcome to Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio. Today we're talking about Tucson, Arizona, one of our favorite places. In fact, that's where Nancy and I lived for many years, and that's where our storage unit is, and our good friends live, and we can't wait to be going back this fall. But to whet our appetite, and I mean it, Eva Eldridge is back on the show. Eva is a writer and longtime guest here on Big Blend Radio, a good friend. And you just heard her on a show too. She was on one of our big weekly blend shows. And boy, Eva made us go into now having a weekly reading list on our shows. Like, what was that, Eva? Welcome back, by the way. But like now we have a reading list. So every month we have to have a reading list, thanks to you. I think it's great.
Oh, that's a good thing.
I think so.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah, we love that edition. We were supposed to do a half-hour conversation talking about what's coming up this month and this week on the holidays. And then next thing you know, there was all these authors. And then next thing you know, an hour and a half went by. And well, it was a little bit less than that, but we got a reading list now every week on our big weekly blend podcast. So that airs on Sundays. And we're excited because Eva's going to talk about 2 square miles in downtown Tucson. And Eva, isn't it? It's 1 million people in Tucson, the city of Tucson, which you wouldn't believe, really, because everybody's so spread out, right? I never felt like it was that big.
Okay, Tucson itself is probably about 750, I think, or 700,000, but Pima County has more than 1 million. So that includes Oro Valley, which is not Tucson. It's connected. Yeah. You know, those satellite towns. Marana and Green Valley is included in those numbers because that's also Pima County and Vail. So when you take in the whole valley and satellite communities, you end up with more than 1 million people. And we hit that quite a few years ago now. So,
but it's beautiful. I mean, it's in a valley. It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful city.
Yeah, we have mountains all around. We have 4 distinct mountain ranges plus a few other little ones, so that's nice. I have a great view of the Rincons and the Catalinas, and behind our house we have the Tucson Mountains, and then to the south we have the Santa Ritas. So it's kind of spectacular if you like that sort of thing.
You've got an awesome view of Tucson from your house, and if anybody wants a really good 4th of July, they have to find Eva. I'm just saying, because you can't, but I'm going to keep you anonymous.
When you walk around Tucson, I don't think you feel like you're in Los Angeles or super crowded. Yeah, because people are more casual and there's more space. So even though the city's growing, it still doesn't feel like
a big city.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It feels like it still has a small town feel to it, which some people don't like. They want the big city. Well, then they need to go to Chicago or New York or other cities like that. Tucson's downtown, we have high-rises and stuff, but there are not that many of them, not really. But we have a lot of history in the downtown area. And then we have a mountain.
Yeah, I want to talk about that, but I want to go back to Nancy about Chicago and everything, because Chicago is iconic. It's not a skyscraper. Nancy's she prefers more smaller towns, but Chicago is an excellent city, and the architecture is, the history of that is amazing, but it is really a night and day difference. Going to Tucson is a city that it just will go like, I didn't know cities could be like this. And, but go to A Mountain, because you talk about this, and Eva's got an article. It's called 2 Square Miles, and you can read it up on blendradioandtv.com. And actually, excuse me, it's going on our nationalparktraveling.com, because people go to Saguaro National Park. And when you go to the park, you want to do something afterwards. You want to go downtown. So sorry, nationalparktraveling.com, but, you can read it there. And, all those links are in the show notes. But A Mountain, because I know, all of you talked about when we lived there, it was like you go to A Mountain. I had no I have no idea where A Mountain is. I don't get it. Like, really. I know
Okay,
you're about to
it's got a
slap me over the Zoom call here, but truly.
It's actually called Sentinel Peak. That's its official name.
Oh,
But
okay.
it
Okay.
has a big A on it for the University of Arizona. It's the iconic A for the U
Oh,
of A. So, and it gets painted colors, green sometimes during St. Patty's Day, and then
mm,
we're playing the Phoenix. If we're playing Arizona State, that comes out of Tempe, they're the Sun Devils, and then they painted their color, and then so there's a battle with the A. It's usually a
wow.
big white A, though. So that's on the side of. That's why it's
I
called A Mountain.
Oh, I photographed it before, but when you say there's a battle of the A, I wouldn't go around saying that. I'm just saying that's funny.
I
But
would.
no, but no,
I
I
think
mean,
it's
now I
called
do remember what you're saying.
Congress.
I just never thought I just never put all of it together in my head, but now I get exactly what you're talking about. So you talk about that in your article, but also you talk about how the name of Tucson comes around. It was like Chickasaw, right? Or yeah, that was the
So,
original name from
I
the Tohono O'odhams. I don't know how to pronounce it,
yeah,
so I'm sorry.
I can't either, so I'm not going to try. But it must have been anglicized into Tucson.
Mm,
When you put those words together, and that meant black base. So the bottom of Sentinel Peak is basalt. I think I put that exactly what they call it
mm-hmm.
in my article, and then on top of that is tuff. It's a volcanic lava rock that's really lightweight and soft. So
mm.
when I did a geology field trip at the U of A, we went up to A Mountain and looked at that. But that's black base. That whole bottom of the mountain is really black rock. It's kind of cool. It's
Ooh.
right there by the Santa Cruz River. So, when the Native Americans, when the First Nations were established here, where they had their their homes, they had the river right there because the river ran all the time, and then they had A Mountain, which is their sentinel. They go up there and watch out for trouble.
Mm.
Mm.
Wow, that's smart though. I mean, and then also San Xavier del Bac, the San Xavier mission, that's outside of town, but there's a lot of churches. There's the Presidio to McCaffrey down south, but it's kind of interesting because I know that's still Pima County ish, because then it's also part of
It
the
is.
Tohono O'odham reservation, right? If you start heading
Yeah.
south, but it's not far
Yeah.
from where you're talking about for people coming to
Not at
Tucson,
all.
these historic sites. I mean, it's it's really close.
10
Everything in the
miles.
downtown area.
10
Yeah.
miles. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. And
So the article, when I was doing the investigation on this, I was really surprised about how much stuff is in this little tiny part of downtown, and I only explored one corner of the downtown area. It's a lovely historic neighborhood, and then you have the museum, St. Augustine,
it's
Del
beautiful.
Tucson. Yeah, and it's a recreation. Some of that stuff got torn down, but it's marked there in signs now where the corner of the Presidio was built to protect Sanavir.
Oh, I
And
didn't know that. Huh.
yeah, so the Presidio was a fort, like all the forts built across the country.
Right.
It was built there to protect. And I think it originally started out as wood, but it got quickly torn down, and they built it out of adobe. So there's recreations of that at the museum, and they have a time. The thing I thought was really cool is they have a timeline. They have plaques in the dirt all the way around with a timeline of, thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years ago, and up to when people started inhabiting, and then what happened when the Spanish hit, and, when the fort was established. And you can walk all the way around that and read all those plaques. It was kind of cool. There's a whole history lesson right there.
Yeah, this is something Nancy and I first, we were living up in Joshua Tree area, 29 Palms, and we did a media trip. It was actually to go to Santa Cruz Valley. which is south of, or county, I should say, but it's also the valley, south of Green Valley to do Tumacacari, Rio Rico, and that region. And we also went to Patagonia, and there was a collection of people getting together, and we went on this media trip, and we were like, well, we need to go to Tucson, and, Nancy and I going into a city, we're a lot better than we were. Like Nancy said, oh God, not a city. But we were pleasantly surprised. We worked with Visit Tucson, and everyone, that's a great website to go to. And, we ended up doing the Turquoise Trail, which it's downtown. You follow this line and you can get a map and everything. And we went to the Presidio with the courthouse. And I mean, the food, that was the problem. Like it was pretty much like 2 miles, like you talk about, but it's different parts of what you're talking about in your 2-mile radius of there's just so much. Like
right.
the downtown, even though it's spread out, there's so much. And the food, the shops, the murals, the arts, the history is so rich. And Nancy and I were like looking at each other like, what? And I remember we were staying at Hacienda del Sol, Nancy, remember that?
Yeah.
And
wow.
we were staying there, and we went to the Grazia Gallery in the Sun. That's how we met Lance. I mean, this is years ago, right? And it was this trip. And I remember we went to DeGrazia, then we did some kind of event. I think we had dinner somewhere, and we got lost and ended up in Casa Grande. I know you're laughing right now. Because you know how that's kind of past Oro Valley. We got lost and we had to drive back to Tucson, and we found our way around. But Nancy and I went, wow, this city is amazing. And a good friend of ours, mutual friend, Michael and Spider, Spider since passed. Michael, was on a show with one of their albums, Iridescent Garden. This is in 29 Palms again on our show. God, this is like 14 years ago, I think. I can't keep up.
At least.
And he said, whenever you come through Tucson, you need to come have a margarita with us. And we were talking about the Tiki Bar. And then next thing you know, we moved to Green Valley. We didn't know, but all we knew is we loved this area. It reminded us of Kenya. And we loved this multicultural connection of everything. It just felt so authentic in history and people, space. Nature is everywhere, even in the neighborhoods. You'll, road runners and javelinas and hummingbirds and flowers. And we fell in love, and it was that trip. And it started that, doing the Santa Cruz Valley, but this downtown, we were like, this isn't a city. And now you're writing about it. You're making me homesick, Eva, because that's why we moved there. And then I know we're coming home for a little bit, but you know what I mean? Because we've traveled in so many places, but Tucson, it was just kind of like, well, let's go there. This is a place that people, I don't know, there's just this, it's such a historic city, but it's not, you can smile at someone and say hello walking down the street without them looking at you like you're going to mug them.
Right. And that's what I liked about it from the first time I walked into Tucson in 1979. It was, people were friendly. They talked to you. And the feeling here was, okay, live and let live. It was different than where I grew up too. So, yeah. And that there's so much history and since the modern streetcar has come through, we've had a bunch of renovations. We've had billions of dollars spent in downtown renovating it. So the bus stops are entertaining, for crying out loud. They're all artistic with flowers or fruit or whatever. And then, the murals and the restaurants, and they've built a bunch of housing. They've been cramming housing apartments in all over downtown. So one of the things, when I went to Portland, Oregon, I loved about downtown was how vibrant it was, right? There's grocery stores, and there's, of course, Powell's, and then the Pearl
don't
District,
start me on that.
People. And we have people who live there, and they have stores, I loved downtown Portland. And so we come back to Tucson, and between 1979, which it was a vibrant Tucson then, but it's in the 80s, it slowly died. And then in the 90s, there was no downtown Tucson left.
Really?
It was boarded up. Oh, it was really bad. It was boarded up. There was there was a little bit of commerce going on in offices. But downtown Tucson, I mean, the government's down there. Pima County is down there. City of Tucson stuff is downtown. But it would really died as far as a vibrant place to go. And then the modern streetcars is coming in, and we had to do, because I work for Telcom, we had to move a lot of our lines and get prepared for the streetcar because of, they're electric, and
so
we can't have our cables running around.
Yeah, Sunlink.
So, and during that time, a bunch of the buildings started to get renovated. They started gutting everything, and things started happening. Like, it was amazing how many different things came in, and what they've done. We have, like I said, the restaurants downtown are amazing.
Yeah.
And we still have the historic stuff like the Pima County Courthouse. And if you go online and look it up online and do the images, they have some great pictures, which I don't have the capacity to take. But
the top of it, the top of it, that crown
the
of
blue
the
dome.
Courthouse. Thank you. The dome is it's iconic, and they have fountains, and I think if you're going to get married, it's a beautiful place as a courthouse, and we know people who got married there, and
Michael and Spider.
Yep. And it's beautiful. I mean, to me, it's beautiful. And then at the same time, you've got this history. So that kind of brings in that southwestern part. And then you've got Hotel Congress. And I'm so glad you put it in your article, because I think, number one, they have one of the best Bloody Marys on the planet. The architecture of Hotel Congress, the music, the restaurant inside, the cup. This is, I think, as a southwestern downtown hotel, has the epitome of what it was. And they've managed to keep that authenticity, yet still be really open to like grunge bands and goth and whatever happens in the music department,
Yes. Well, the Rialto, which was a theater across the street from the Hotel Congress, closed down whenever it closed down, and then they opened it again to bring in music. Unfortunately, back then, they didn't do anything about its acoustics, and I've never heard anything so bad in my life as the acoustics they had way back when. And then they started investing money they didn't really remodel it as much as they fixed it so the acoustics were better. They put, the panels on the walls and stuff. So now when you go to a show there, it's not, they still have standing only shows once in a while, but there's other shows that are seated that you can get a reserved seat. They just open up, folding chairs. But the sound there is a whole lot better, and they bring in so many bands. And they're associated with 191 Congress, which was a little bar type area with a stage, and they bring in people there. And then we also have the Fox Theater, which is an old 1920s type, what do you call that, architecture?
Yeah.
Theater 1920s? That they renovated. Yeah, it was the, God, my brain is just shut down.
I don't want to say mid-modern century, because it's after the 20s, right?
Yeah, it's that beautiful stuff they did then. And they remodeled that, and it's in that style, and they bring in tons of bands, and they show movies there, and they do other stuff in the in the Fox. And they have kept the feel of old time Tucson. And a lot of the buildings, they're not like tearing the buildings down as much as they're just gutting them and reworking them. So you have all those old buildings from Tucson, from the old Tucson, and putting in modern stuff. They crammed a new hotel in on Broadway, that it's like, how did you get that building in there? But they have a hotel down there now, a big one that we
Well,
didn't
that's
have
good.
before. So
That's good because I know you get
yes.
a lot of meetings and conventions, but I know, Nancy, I know you're itching to talk about the
Mhm.
Dillingers. I know she's scratching right now and going like, I need to talk about the Dillingers.
Well,
Right,
there's some
Nancy?
great history, that never comes to the forefront. And yeah, the Dillingers, wow. And they went in
Yeah.
and
Right.
shot the place up and said, hey, we're taking your money. And they did.
Yeah, well, that was an interesting story because
Yeah.
they left and the Congress burned, and then they got
Mm-hmm.
caught later. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, very interesting stuff there.
Yeah. How did
So
Yeah.
that
the
fire just
Hotel
happen?
Congress,
Yeah.
yeah, Hotel Congress still has a lot of that feeling when you walk in there. It's cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it too. Because
Yeah.
it's just something that you can relate to.
Yes,
Somehow you can relate to it because it really happened and you're standing where it happened. That's what I like about visiting historic sites. It's like if you really think about it and you stand there and you can let your imagination go, you can relive it in your own
yes.
sense. Like obviously because
Well,
you
and
weren't
the Hotel Congress has plaques all over it too, with
there.
stuff, information. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that place is pretty cool. And then across the street is the train station. The old, it's one of the new train station. I guess Maynard's is there, but you can pick up Amtrak there. They have a restaurant called Maynard's, and there's
Yep.
another Maynard's shop where you can do a little shopping, and then Amtrak comes through there. So
I love that Amtrak does that because number one, Nancy
Yeah.
and I still want to do an Amtrak kind of road trip. And our
Yeah.
friend Jim Ostick came through. He was going to do the Arizona Trail from south of
mhm.
Patagonia area all the way up. And anyway, so we picked him up like at 4 or 5 in the morning. And
Right.
I remember going there and it was like, and I remember, because there are trolley lines too. So there's a streetcar thing, but now is there like, I remember going, oh God, be careful of the trolley. And then going, is this the city with the trolley? Do they still have it? Now I can't remember. Do they
They
still have
did way
trolley?
back, but the
Yeah.
Okay.
modern streetcar isn't really a trolley. It's a streetcar, and
Yeah.
it's not on the same
On the
tracks as
tracks.
the Amtrak.
So the tracks
Yeah,
are there. And
they
I
have.
remember getting him and Maynard's was there and we went and picked him up and he was just like, and what was so cool about going in the depot, and I'm like, God, you know what? We would never have walked in if it wasn't for picking him up. And going
Yeah,
in there is a museum in itself. Like they showed the history of this depot and
Mm-hmm.
of like really what it was like way back when. And to me, depots are interesting because this was a form of, travel before we had cars. And I mean, I love being able to road trip, but this was
well,
the
that's
way.
the old depot. The original big, huge, fancy depot is no longer a depot, and the great train tracks don't run down there. They're down there off of Congress and the freeway. It used
So I
to
don't
be a
know. Well, I
restaurant
think
called
this is
Carlos
the,
Murphy's.
oh, well, this is going
That
to be
is
more
the
of the
original.
Amtrak history, I think. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, yes. Well, I think the routes of the trains changed, but
Mm-hmm.
the old original depot was down is more closer to the freeway, and the building is
So,
still there, but it got converted into office buildings, I think.
well,
Oh.
the Amtrak station,
Um,
I'm just Googling this, was built in the Spanish Revival, and I think that's the style you were thinking of, by the Southern Pacific Railroad in 1907, and the building was replaced a wooden structure that had served the public since the railroad's arrival in 1880. So this was
wow.
more of like it's different like what you're talking about, but yeah,
Right.
looking at it, it's different. Yeah, it is different. So, okay. So I have to ask this because I know this is a stupid question, but one thing that Nancy and I personally, just as a person who drives a lot and sometimes likes to stop for coffee and really bad food, and I'm not saying it's bad food, unhealthy food, but like delicious, greasy food. is
Yes.
Waffle House.
Right.
And no, it's not bad food, but it's not good for your arteries. But the Waffle House, I have a very weak thing going for that. And in actual fact, I haven't been to one for a long time, but um, I love me a good
It's
Waffle
time.
House experience. You're a writer, even. Number one, it's good people watching. But the food, I want the Waffle House. And we kept going. There's a Waffle House in Tucson, and that was one of the reasons we moved to. We've still never been to it. Is it still there? I have to ask because I don't know any
Oh my
Waffle
gosh.
House.
There is a
West of,
Waffle House right off of Grant in the freeway, and they just remodeled it.
what? Now, we have friends that go on Valentine's Day. I think it's their wedding anniversary too. And they go every year on Valentine's Day to Waffle House for the Valentine's Day special. Seriously, there's a whole thing.
Waffles are good. There's nothing wrong with
Waffle
waffles.
House, it's like a thing, but it's so much of a Southern thing. How, like, do you travel the country? Have you seen a Waffle House anywhere in the West other than Tucson?
Yeah, we see them all
There's
over the
tons.
place.
Yeah.
Where? I'm missing it. I'm missing it.
Well, yeah,
They're
I'm
because
talking
all-
they're small. They're
Texas,
small,
yes.
and they have tiny little. They're a small presence.
I didn't see them in California. That's the thing.
no,
California,
there's-
no
maybe.
waffles.
the waffle, I mean, the waffle's a good way
But
of eating.
it's about the hash browns.
No, but
It's
the
not even the
waffle-
waffles. It's the hash
waffle
browns.
itself, when you think about what you have to put in this little machine, it makes these little squares, so it cooks faster, and it's guaranteed to be cooked through, as opposed to a pancake that you flip and may or may not be done in the middle. Just saying.
I've got the giggles now because last time Eva was on the show not too long ago for the big weekly blend, we ended up talking, it was National Waffle Day or something and Burger Day. And then we called those show the Waffle Burger. And now we're back to waffles again.
That was funny.
I didn't mean to talk about waffles again, but
The waffles are cool.
Nancy wants a waffle. Apparently I better go get her some Eggos or something.
No, that's not. Oh, well, I won't say
No.
that.
She
Yep.
wants to make them. She wants to hand
I
make
wanna
the
make them.
waffles. Okay. But I'm glad that
Art
the Waffle
Deco.
House is there. Art Deco.
Okay, the style
Okay.
of the Fox Steakhouse is Art Deco, and it originally opened in 1930.
Ooh.
And then it reopened after, years of neglect and stuff. It reopened after they remodeled it in 2006. And Bruce Hornsby played.
Cool.
We
That's
couldn't
cool.
go.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So, okay, one thing you brought up is about the bike paths. And Tucson has that amazing cycling trail that goes throughout the entire city, along the rivers, canals, Sweetwater, goes up even through Oro Valley, and it connects all the way down to, south of, I think it goes to Sayarita even. This bike, and it's like 120 something miles with public art, horses, bikes, jogging, walking. Nancy and I did a lot of that trail while we were there
Beautiful.
a few years back, and did as much as we could of all these pocket parks. And we still need to get that all up on the site because it's amazing to me that that's where I think, when we started the tour going on the road 100%, then coming back for a couple years and revamping our websites and then going, no, we're still doing our tour, and we were still going out and doing parks. Tucson has so many parks and so much recreation that when we were starting to do this trail, Nancy and I don't bicycle, cycle, like you don't ever want to see that, though it could be funny. So maybe you do. But you won't see it. We really realized about quality of life and how much that was there, the Parks and Rec, and that it was actually a very healthy community. Even though you have so much good food, this is a very healthy community that was very outdoors, that these parks meant something to the kids for soccer, for, football, for tennis, for volleyball, for all baseball, all these sports, but also even if you have all that, you still had a hiking trail, like maybe in, Catalina area and stuff. You'll have a hiking trail or, and I know we're talking about the 2 miles, but the cycling is also a big thing in the downtown, which I think is very important when we look at how we're moving forward with climate change and mobility, that cities need to be walkable and cyclable,
And
and
safe.
have public transportation to be viable
Right.
and to really thrive. Like you were talking about people living in there, like a main street shouldn't just be a row of shops. The architect firm should be there. The lawyer should be there. The shoe shop. I don't know do we have shoe shops anymore other than Amazon, but like, you know what I mean? And then someone living upstairs,
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Yes. And I don't know if there's any shoe shops downtown, but things are moving in down there. So they used to have, so back in 79 when I moved here, they had a Hockamies, which was a local department store. And it was, they were a big deal. They're like the Ronstadts. The Hockamies are like the Ronstadts. They, were big deals in Tucson. And Hockamies was a department store, the old type where you walk in and get shoes or clothes or, bedding or whatever. And when Hockamies closed, that was the beginning of the end for downtown. So we don't have that anymore down there.
That's
But you don't know
interesting.
that it's not going to happen.
That's a good point.
So,
But it is interesting because at some point, the bigger conglomerates have to shift. And that's a hard shift. You can't have your
Amazon has done a number on things. Well, a lot of the departments, like those at that time, back then, everything moved out to the malls, right?
And now the malls are closing.
Yeah. Or changing. Elcon Mall turned into an outdoor mall. They took their roof off and turned it into an outdoor mall.
Wow.
Yeah,
But
I think Tucson Mall is still going.
Well, I think malls are having a problem, and then now they're going, okay, do we demolish it or do we make it into apartments and workspaces as well, like office apartments, which makes sense, but the internet, like it's so interesting when we think about these downtowns, like what you're talking about. This is 2 square miles, lots of restaurants, food, entertainment, streetcars, hotels. So everything is there, right? Art, mural, public art, bike paths. All of this, and history with, the Dillingers. What more do you want, people? And what's interesting to me is you're not having to walk too far, right? To experience all of this. You can go park at your hotel and enjoy all of this. And then if you want to go, Saguaro National Park is 10, 15 minutes away, if that.
West. Saguaro West.
And then, Saguaro West. We should definitely make people understand that part, because there's 2 parts of the park. One's in the east in the mountains. In the mountains, and then there's one in the west, and then that's where the old Tucson movie studios, and there's that whole other drive that's not even necessarily the park. And you will see saguaros everywhere you go. Yeah, go ahead.
Tucson Mountain Park. That's not the national park. That's Tucson Mountain Park.
That's right. But then what's the studios? Is it still called Tucson Old Studios, the movie studios?
I think so. Yeah. They're reopening again. They're doing it again. As I think a potential filming area. There's something that's happening out there. It's not dead.
The movie history of Tucson is Steve Schneikert, our Hollywood history friend and friend in general. He did a segment on Tucson's Hollywood history, and I'll link it from the show notes because it's really fascinating. Because he's like, yes, there were a bunch of westerns filmed in Tucson. I mean, the list you could go on for years, but there were so many other ones filmed, like Boys on the Side. I had to bring that up because that's one of my favorite movies. He put that in there just for me. But so many other contemporary movies were filmed there too, in Tucson.
It's funny when you're watching those movies and you look at the background and you go, I know where that is. I know right? That's it's in my backyard.
You remember, Nancy? Before. Remember, Nancy and I had that black and white photo book collection of, it's a history of the different cities and towns around the country, right? It's done by Turner Publishing in Nashville, people. Like, look at these black and white books. And we had one of Tucson. And I was just, I mean, you could see the places that Eva's talking about from the 1800s. Like, as soon as they could photograph this, you could see it. And, I mean, the photography was amazing to see what they would look at as like a cowboy ranching kind of town, but
Cool.
southwestern town and Dillinger Town and the Hotel Congress and all that. But when you fast forward, and you'll see Model T Fords out in what is now Saguaro National Park with women in dresses, and they're having a picnic under a saguaro tree. Like, seriously. And there'd be a horse, and then there'd be the ranches, the dude ranches coming in, and this history of this area. It's pretty darn amazing when you think about the history of Tucson, because it was, I think, a gentleman, Sean Kingsley, was on our show, many years ago. He since passed away, and he was in in Tubac, the fort in Tubac, that we met him and interviewed him. You might have met him, Eva. I don't know if he had passed away before that. You went to the Presidio and the fort in Tubac with us that one time.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, he since passed away, but he was saying that when you look at the history of Arizona and even the Louisiana Purchase, you've got to look at Tucson, Yuma, and Tubac, these three icons. And Tucson was so strategically placed. And all of that history is right what you're talking about within these 2 miles, which now you can go, let's go have a margarita and some really good Mexican food, right?
Yeah.
But when you're sitting there enjoying that, think about, we had, that first trip we were talking about, we went to a restaurant, and I will remember the name on another day, but they had cucumber margaritas. I'll never forget that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yum.
And they had what was called barcadero, I think, meat. It was almost dried meat. And they let me go up. Oh, that's it. Yes. And they let me go up where they were drying the meat to photograph drying the meat. And then we ate it, and it was, what's the barquero thing then? What am I thinking? That's another thing. That's
barquero is a cowboy, isn't it?
No, that's a vaquero. I mean, barcadero. There's another thing beginning with a B for boy.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But you're right about what you're saying. No, what you're saying is correct. I'm wrong. Yeah.
And I know the name of that restaurant, and it's not coming to me either. El Charro.
El Charro. It is El Charro. You're absolutely right. And that restaurant, that's the visitor bureau said, like, that's an icon place. Mm-hmm. And I think they have more than one. It's kind of almost become a Tucson chain.
But it's pretty much historic.
It's, I think, one of the oldest buildings of a restaurant in the city.
Yeah.
It's got
down
history
there in that 2 square miles.
It's in the 2 square miles. So, I know you talked about this in your article, and we've talked about this before, and we were all excited when Tucson became a UNESCO World Heritage Site for food gastronomy. Please give everyone because you know how to cook, you know food, you know how, like, honestly, Eva knows food and cooking, and she knows, like, way more than Nancy and I just go, dude, this is cool. She knows. So when you look at Tucson, what should visitors expect, especially within that 2 mile radius of the kind of things they can enjoy in a UNESCO World Heritage Site for gastronomy?
I think there's a Thai restaurant down there. There's a Japanese restaurant down there. There is plain old, fancy American fare. The Mexican place El Charro's down there, and they've also branched off to El Charro Steak and Del Mar, which is a seafood and steak place, which is some of the best steak I've ever had. They have Penca, and that's from South America. They have, and there was the Hub. There's the Cup at Club Congress, and Maynard's, which is across the street from Club Congress. There are also a bunch of little pocket restaurants that we haven't, of course, got to all of them. And then there's street tacos. We have lots of street tacos now. So there's a place on the corner next to the Fox there. There's an Italian restaurant downtown. It's like, and that's just downtown. That does not include all the amazing food that you find around every other place in Tucson.
Right. Because even when you talk about Mexican food, there's different regions represented.
It's all different. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so once you live here for a while, you go to the Carichimaca you go to, I think that's the name of it, for carne asada. And you go to Michas for huevos rancheros. And you go to Mosaic for, the Mosaic was on challenge with Bobby Flay. And they lost, but, still that's pretty exciting. Everybody was there trying their, rancheros. Closed right now, but hopefully it'll open this fall. That's what we're hoping. So we had a 5-star Mexican from Central Mexico, from Mexico City restaurant that closed over the pandemic, and she was an amazing chef, and that was different Mexican food than any of the other places in town. And I'm very sad that they closed because, boy, I love that place. And then that's just the Mexican place. You go to, there's a bunch of, pop-ups, the food trucks.
Oh, see, and we need to talk about food trucks. Yeah, food trucks are a huge part of tasting a city, and don't be scared of food trucks. Food trucks they've simplified what they know that they can keep fresh and good, know what they can get out and deliver and have the best flavor with. Food trucks are good. Man, seriously. They
are. Oh, and we have Tucson Tamale Company that makes some really kick-butt tamales.
What about the barrio bread? Isn't there barrio bread? What about is there barrio bread?
He's not downtown, but he's in town. He has done this international reach out, and he is all over the world now. I mean, not his product, but he's gone all over the world teaching and talking about using sustainable wheat from local sources and having it ground locally. So he has his own wheat fields in the area, Marana and the area, and he has his wheat ground up at Hayden Mills in Phoenix, or it's not Phoenix, but it's one of their subsidiary towns. And he makes some of the best bread I've ever eaten in my life. It's a slow rise sourdough. And now he's branched out to doing bagels, and he's doing pizza. And he, like I said, Barrio Bread and Don Guerrera are internationally known now. And he won the James Beard Award. So,
Nancy, I just barely asked Eva to explain Tucson's food like she knows, and she just went off. I think she's got a passion for Tucson food. Okay. Now,
but it's good.
Okay. Well, what about 4th Street? So just get my bearings back, because, I just twirl around and don't even know how to parallel park, right? So you know that.
That's something to watch.
Now, 4th Avenue. Is it 4th Street or 4th Avenue? Okay.
4th Avenue.
Is that within the 2 miles, or am I off a bit?
No, it is not, but it's right next to it. So if you take the streetcar, which you can pick up by Avenida de Convento, that's the west end of it, and pick it up, it'll take you through downtown. It'll give you a little corner. It takes you through the corner by Congress and stuff. And then it goes to 4th Avenue. It goes under an underpass and goes to 4th Avenue. And 4th Avenue has been here forever. But they've also built a bunch of student housing in there now, too. They've crammed those buildings in there.
That's good. That's good, right? Because that helps the downtown flourish. Because I remember there being there was a Seed Savers. I don't know if it's the name. Seed Savers, where they were saving seeds and you know what I'm talking?
Native Seed Search, but that's not downtown. Native Seed Search is on Campbell. They're still here.
Okay, to me it's all the same region. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, it is all Tucson, but this is 4th Avenue has like the food co-op, and it has a bunch of bars. It's got a lot of bars, and it has a lot of.
Nancy, remember the little thing where everybody got on and paddled with their wiggy, their wine and whatever? There was like a bar cart or something that went down the street where everybody's paddling in this bar, like a moving bar, and they had their cocktails and went down the street. What was that? Like a moving streetcar of wine and booze or whatever. They would go down like that. Was
That's
that Fourth
clever.
Avenue?
It was
fun.
clever.
So I
Yeah, it
think
was
we're
fun
off.
and
We're
it was
off a little
clever.
bit. To us, the whole region is just so accessible. So we
Right.
strayed
Well,
beyond
it
just
is.
2 miles.
It's
Sorry.
friendly. It's a big city without the big city scary.
Well, it has
You
some of
know,
that too. Don't
I know we do.
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We still have some of that. We have homelessness,
yeah,
pretty rampant
Yeah.
here too. So you get that. We don't
yeah.
have downtown, at least in this part. There's not so much with the gangs, so we don't
Yeah.
have that
We
to,
don't have
to worry
that.
about. But so much. But
You're
you
right.
still have homelessness,
You have
and
to
that's
keep your.
everywhere.
You have
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, we've seen those experiencing
we've seen it
homeless in
everywhere.
snow, Wisconsin, outside of Walmart. So it
We've
is
seen
that's
people
a
with
nation.
tents on
Yeah.
the medians on freeways.
But that's a nationwide issue, and sunnier places seem to get it. But I think with Tucson, I remember going, "Oh, this is supposedly a scary city," but I
It's
never
not.
felt that. And I know things
Mm.
happen, just like Albuquerque, right? Albuquerque gets
Well,
that rep too, and I'm like,
you have to be
Albuquerque,
aware.
you
You have
just
to
have
be
to
aware.
be. We had an amazing time in Albuquerque. It it is about being aware as a traveler
Mhm.
and as a just go to. I don't care if it's your local neighborhood store. Be aware. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter what you're doing,
research and be
you
aware.
know, because that's that. I mean,
Right.
I mean, there's some areas that are notoriously bad, then just don't do it.
Don't
But
go there.
yeah, but I
Yeah,
mean,
there's
Tucson,
no
what you're
ben.
talking about, Nancy and I have walked in the area that you're talking about at night. We've been there in the daytime, and
Mhm.
Well,
I don't know, man. We did that whole region, and we've done it more than once, and obviously, to me, like it's all connect. I mean,
well,
the
since
downtown is actually spread out. It is kind of a big downtown when you think of it. I know you're
Well,
talking about
yeah.
that 2 miles.
it's been revitalized, and so in the past you wouldn't see people walking around downtown, so and
Mm.
now there's people everywhere downtown. And I
That's
had
exciting.
when they were doing the streetcar, somebody made a comment about well, I don't know why they're doing that downtown. What good is that going to do? There's never anybody down there, and or just college kids. It's only college kids down there. And we were sitting at one of the restaurants watching the people walk by, and it's not just college kids. It's everybody of
Yeah.
every age, every ethnicity, it's amazing. There's families, and of course, yes, there's a ton of college kids, but it's everybody
But
else
that's
too.
cool. That's cool.
But
that's why
that
I
is a
don't
good
worry
thing.
about. I don't worry about walking around
I
downtown.
remember you talked
Mm.
about Sunlink, and I remember it was before we left and went on the road. They were talking about it, and this is what they're investing in. People are getting all, oh, they're taking our tax dollars and stuff. And I'm going, no, this is a positive for the community. Like, this is what we
very
talk about.
positive.
Responsible
Mm.
tourism. So when we talk about tourism, we're not trying to say, hey, Disneyland's going to move into your backyard, because that would suck. We're talking about responsible tourism, which means that responsible tourism is supposed to be added benefits to your community, and having transportation, public transportation is a massive benefit to any community. And there's many, many communities across this country that do not have that, and they need it. And if they have it, it is incredibly limited and expensive. So when Tucson did this, I thought it was fantastic. And hey, you don't have to drive around. And if you don't know a town, listen, driving in a city where also, one-way streets, hello, Lisa gets in trouble with those. I'm still
You
from
think?
Africa, and I go on the other side of the road sometimes. Nobody likes me doing one-way streets. So to me, put me on public transportation so you can actually look out and maybe mingle with some of the locals to find out what to see and do. Get some local insight, make some actual connections. And, I think we get so attached to our GPS. And that's also another thing about what I love about your article is, yeah, we can look at our GPS, and I think it's a huge tool. It's great that we can Google things and all of that.
Yeah.
But I think there's something about understanding a region, because when we GPS so much, don't we forget the geography and the lay of the land in a weird way? You just keep following the voice and not actually knowing where the hell you are.
I know. And
Quite
if
honestly.
somebody took
Exactly.
over, if somebody took over, like we call our GPS Jane says, and she tells, well, turn left here, do this, do that. What if somebody took it over? Like,
Okay,
then
Nancy's
it would
just trying
be-
to channel your sci-fi, Eva.
No,
Your inner
no,
sci-fi.
seriously, you make a great novel, because so suddenly somebody takes over GPS and everybody's totally messed up because they're not self-thinking.
Well, but
Okay,
that's,
I can see what
I know.
Yeah.
Now, don't trip us out. But that's the thing, right? That's what we're doing. We're all
But it's
being like, you will turn here, you will do this, you're going to
And you
follow
just
whatever
do
this
it.
voice says. That voice
Yeah,
But here's
has led me.
here's the
exactly.
thing.
I should do an article
Here's
just
the
about
thing.
the places Jane is dead ends in places we shouldn't be.
I know.
Go over a bridge that is only for ATVs in the middle of a
Yeah.
wildlife refuge while people are hunting and shooting around you. Yeah, let me write a story about that. So,
No, but it's funny when you think
but
about it.
but that's what I like about your article, is like it's kind of giving people this, not kind of, it is the sense of place and understanding to, here's this region. I don't have to go that far. I could walk. I could take the Sunlink. I could do this and actually get to understand an area. Because the downtowns, the historic downtowns, they're the ones with the integrity. Even though they change through the years, they're the ones who tell the
They
stories
have
of
to change.
that's where something started. That's the seed of
Well,
Tucson, other than the Native American lands, obviously.
Yeah, the thing with and I wanted to bring in the walking and the bike paths. When you're walking and you're biking, you
Yeah.
actually see things more. You get to
Yeah.
experience better, and it's very nice that we have that ability here.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, it's true.
That's what I was saying. That to me is the huge thing, is mobility. Sometimes you may not want to do it at 1 PM on a summer day. But you could do it in the morning and evening.
Pick
It's
and
beautiful.
choose your time.
Yeah,
You can pick and choose a reasonable
yeah.
time
But
according to climate.
I also want to give a really big shout out to what you said about, and this is about the neon signs. I mean, we have our friends Jeroen. He's going to laugh at me now. Jeroen and Maggie, who come over every year to the States to document neon signs across the country. And he's saying we're running out of neon signs. They're getting taken down because of their cost of running them. And then collectors buy them and put them in their bar, and people don't get to see them anymore. And I said, well,
do they not
maybe
have it in Europe?
So last time we talked to him, I said, well, wouldn't it be better if they were in a museum? Then he goes, no, because they were supposed to be on the outside of a building. So him and Maggie, they're documenting these signs because it's part of our Americana. And here we have people in, Holland coming back here to document what we're losing. Yet he's a big fan. And before we saw them in Nashville this year, we saw them in Tucson. They came over. And they went to go, oh my gosh, Monterey Court is where they were going for dinner. And we had to get going because we had a magazine coming out. But that is a neon sign, a true neon sign. And they were very excited about going. But you talked about the neon sign that Hotel Congress has a real one, right?
Yes. And Fox Theater and Rialto, they're all downtown. Somebody bought the Ghost Ranch on Miracle Mile, which has a bunch of neon, and he took down the Ghost Ranch Lodge sign, and the city made him put it back up. So granted, it's not as high as it used to be because it's not a lodge anymore. It's a housing for, low-cost housing. But he had to put the sign back up. And that's what they're doing. Lucky Wishbone has neon signs all over the place. So it's another cool mid-century modern thing in Tucson, which is a lot of mid-century modern.
Yeah. And yeah, that's exactly it. Art Deco, mid-century modern. And there's a festival that happens, I believe, every October or November in Tucson. So you might want to Google that, folks. Eva, thank you again. What a great article, and always fun to chat with you. Obviously, you are so passionate about Tucson and its culinary scene and all of it. I mean, all of it. So,
Yes, I love this town.
Well, I think so. And you should, because it's a beautiful and amazing, yeah, it is a town, right? I don't feel like it's a city at all. We never did.
It is, but it's like a lot of little towns that got together and said, okay, we're a city.
Well, but there's a lot of neighborhoods on the like Northwest and stuff that are being built up more. So it's more commercial compared to where Eva's talking about. So there's some different areas. But Tucson as a whole,
it's charming.
Man, you can't beat it. You can't beat it. And there's just so much history and hiking and walking and cycling if you can do that like we can't. But oh my God. Yeah. So I'm officially homesick. So thanks so much for that, Eva. Everyone, you can keep up with Eva at evaeldridge.com. Her article, like I was saying, is on nationalparktraveling.com. And that link is both links are in the show notes, whether you're listening to this on YouTube or Facebook or, wherever, Google, Apple, all of that, anywhere in the podcast land. And of course, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. We thank you all for joining us. And thank you so much, Eva.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here. And please come visit Tucson. We love it here.
Yeah, we'll come.